A lovely good morning to you, our viewers. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. We do apologize for starting the program a little bit late. This was due to circumstances beyond our control. But anyway, we are here to bring you nothing but the best of what we have for you this morning. I am your host, Miriam Kaimba, and in studio, I am not alone. I am joined by my beautiful colleague, Zipporah Mshala. Good morning, Zipporah, and how are you?
Good morning, Miriam, and good morning there to our lovely viewers. I hope you're having a wonderful Monday, because for us, we're here ready to work and everything. And I hope you're having a wonderful day.
It's a new week, so, we expect to do new things, new stuff, and yeah, we are happy. Yeah.
Definitely. And so today we have a very, very interesting topic for you. In the country, you've seen a number of sodomy incidences occurring. So this is where maybe little boys have been defiled by men. And so really today we are going to have the Iteshteji Member of Parliament, who's also the chairperson for the Education Committee at Parliament, to just help us discuss child safety in Zambia. How safe are our children in Zambia? And really, where are people getting this thing? Because sodomy has always been a strange thing in our country. So do remember to keep engaged in the conversation and call us on the numbers that will be scrolling on your screen.
Exactly, Zipporah. You get to wonder, like, why are people learning this? This is something which is against nature. Okay, and then you keep on seeing happening in our country, and then not forgetting the fact that Zambia is a Christian nation. So we it's comes worrisome to keep on recording such high numbers of such cases. It's a very, very worrisome. Anyway, before we go into details talking about that, right about now, we'll go direct with the doctors and just see what the doctors have for us this morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Mainga Nalube, and I'm with the Medical Women's Association of Zambia. This week, we've been discussing high blood pressure, which is a very common condition and is a very important condition for us to know. And I mentioned that another word or another way to call high blood pressure is hypertension. So whenever you hear the word hypertension, you know someone is talking about high blood pressure. So on Monday, we looked at what it is and its risk factors. We described that hypertension could be primary, it could be secondary, and it has three main factors. So BP has three main factors that affect it. So those three main factors we mentioned were cardiac output, resistance in the arteries, and your blood volume. And then we mentioned some of the risk factors being obesity, smoking, high alcohol intake, family history, and already existing conditions such as diabetes and kidney disease. So yesterday we looked at the signs and symptoms and the complications of hypertension. I mentioned that hypertension is a silent killer. We mentioned why it's called a silent killer. We said that someone could go through their life, could live out their life without knowing that they have high blood pressure and only present with a complication. And we mentioned that these complications are very big, and it would be better if we know we have regular BP checkups, and then if we have high blood pressure, we get this treated by medical personnel to avoid having presenting with these complications. Some of the complications we mentioned were stroke, heart failure. You could also have visual problems. You could also have kidney failure. So on today's segment, we are going to be looking at the diagnosis of high blood pressure. So how do we diagnose high blood pressure? I talked about how when you go to the hospital, the first thing that a health personnel would do is check your vital signs. So some of these vital signs are things like temperature. We've seen them measure our temperature. So one of the most important vital signs is your blood pressure. We check blood pressure on everyone who comes to the hospital. so that we can catch it. If it's high, we can catch if it's high or low and know what further treatment or management to do. So we measure blood pressure using something that we call a BP machine, which is a blood pressure machine. This machine could be automated or it could be manual. The manual one is the one that you've seen the nurses in clinics use. They pump something, so yeah, that one is called a manual one. And then we have an automatic one, which people who are living with hypertension are usually asked to buy because they have to keep having to keep checking their blood pressure, and so it's good that they buy this one. So we've mentioned that it could be an automatic one or a manual one. We have values as medical personnel that show us if your blood pressure is high or if it's low. We won't go into talking about values, but yes, that's how blood pressure is measured. We use a BP machine. In the circumstance that it's found that you have high blood pressure, there are other tests that medical personnel would do. Remember, we talked about complications, so they would want to test to see if any organ in your body has experienced these complications. So they would maybe do tests on your urine to check if your kidneys, if you have a complication in your kidneys due to long-standing untreated high blood pressure. You could also have eye tests, and these are things that people living with hypertension are told to constantly have checked. So you could be told maybe to have visual tests, maybe every year or twice, once every year or twice every year. So these are things that the doctors will check. They could also do some tests on your heart to see if there's been any damage to the arteries in your heart. That's to check for complications. One very important thing we should know is that if you are a person living with high blood pressure or hypertension, it's very important that you keep a record of your blood pressure readings even when you're at home. So usually the doctor will tell you to have a book that you go with to the hospital every time you're going for your reviews. So you can have your blood pressure checked anywhere, in your local pharmacy, in your local clinic, or even at home if you have the BP machine, but you should always record so that if you are on treatment, they know if this treatment is working or not according to how your blood pressure record has been. So it's very important that if you are living with high blood pressure, you record your blood pressure readings whilst you are on treatment so that you can show it to your doctor every time you go for a review. Thank you so much for watching Health Corner. My name is Dr. Mainga Naluve and I'm with the Medical Women's Association of Zambia. See you tomorrow.
So that was Dr. Mainga Naluve just telling us about high blood pressure. I hope you learned one or two things. Just now we jump into the money market, and just a reminder to our viewers that you can come forward and sponsor the health segment as well as sponsor the money market. So let us take a look at how the kwacha is faring against major convertibles this morning. We have the euro, which is buying at 15 kwacha 29 ngwe, selling at 15 kwacha 59 ngwe. The Great British Pound, which is buying at 17 kwacha 66 ngwe, selling at 18 kwacha. The United States dollar, which is buying at 15 kwacha 29 ngwe, selling at 15 kwacha 59 ngwe, and the South African rand, which is buying at 0 kwacha 89 ngwe and selling at 0 kwacha 19 ngwe. So very, very interesting there. I think we've seen that our kwacha is actually appreciating at a fast rate, Miriam.
Yeah, very, very good things, Zipporah.
And I've seen some oil prices in some chain stores have actually reduced.
Even the prices of commodities now, we can see as slight as reduction, like cooking oil and other commodities. But anyway,
they're reducing.
Yeah, they're reducing. But in some shops, the prices are still the same. Yeah.
And my greatest fear always is that this has not been stable, depending on the fluctuations.
Yes.
So really, are they just going to reduce for a month, then next time shoot up? Like, it's not giving that peace, that hope.
And exactly, like, and if we come next month and then we see the fuel pump price, being increase again, this will also affect the prices of commodities. Again, we'll see an increase. So I don't know.
We need to see stability.
Exactly.
Yes, and Miriam, maybe just now we open our phone lines to our viewers out there so that you can contribute. Today's topic is the issue of sodomy in Zambia. Where is this thing coming from? Why have there been a lot of incidences of sodomy? Where are children learning this? But anyway, before we actually go into that, we're just going to take a look at one of yesterday's stories in Zooming the Headlines, and this is the story from Mutendere compound here in Lusaka, where a 42-year-old woman was allegedly raped and beaten up by community gangs. Let's take a look. This is Mutendere Section B in Lusaka's Munali constituency near Mahatma Gandhi School grounds, a place notorious for crimes carried out by community gangs, locally known as junkies. It was here that a 42-year-old woman of the same area Saturday morning at 4 a.m. met her fate as she was going for market orders for a vegetable selling business when one youth from the said gangs allegedly pounced on her, dragged her to a secluded place, and raped her. The woman was in the process, however, rescued by people who heard her screaming and came to her aid, but her assailant is said to have freed himself from the grip of those who caught him through taking off his shirt and leaving it in their hands. Wupechewe, which is not her real name, now explains the incident.
efyamfura panti achanda andali n'abantu bakwalise fu beshiri omwe abutukire abantu bakwalise fu bantu olire n'okutwala dipoti kwa polisi mwe bantu napapata ayamba shopu yali apata wembe twalafwa twafweni namwe buteko namba polisi mwe bale bombera pa bantu twafweni kona papata inelero ngani fanisha bana.
Meanwhile, the residents allege that they are not receiving much help from the police, whom they say should enhance security in the area. In a separate interview, Mutendere at 34 Councillor Boniface Chiveka has commented on the incident.
Due to, of course, the abuse of drugs and other psychotropic substances. So what I would also say is that it is my appeal to the police to intensify patrols in Mutendere. Actually, it's not only like where the victim was attacked from. It's actually the home Mutendere. That is now a security threat due to these junkies we have in our compound. We have them in our houses. Others are just like I've said, our children. So my appeal is to parents to teach our children manners as the police are doing their work. We are now going to set up some neighborhood watch system in Mutendere. So far, this section and this section have submitted names, which I'm forwarding to the officer in charge in Mutendere. That is on Monday tomorrow. That's what we are going to do. And I'm hoping that even in B section, A section, we also form some groups.
The residents have further called for aggressive solutions to the problem of drug and alcohol abuse in the community. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
A very sad story out there, all the way from Mutendere compound, where a 42-year-old woman was allegedly raped as she was trying, to go for her orders as early as 04 hours, and was dragged by one of the young men, the gangs, the junkies. I don't know if it's the correct term I can use, but anyway, she was raped and attacked, beaten, Zipporah, you did the story, and I know it's not the first time you are talking about, such kind of things happening in Mutendere compound, as well as the issue of junkies. How is it? Just speed us up how the situation is currently in Mutendere compound.
So yesterday I was actually talking to the counselor who says there are a lot of people in Tendere who don't take their children to school. So you find that when these children grow up, they're the ones who end up maybe doing drugs, and so now the only way of living is through robbing people, causing crime and all these other things. And just then with Tendere, Miriam, it would be of interest maybe to know just by Mahatma Gandhi school grounds where the incident happened, there is actually a shop which used to sell groceries but now has only liquor selling. Only liquor. You go there sometimes with a car, you can't even pass because the same youths have blocked the road. They put benches on the road. They're smoking, drinking on the road. You can't even pass with it. So there's just like lawlessness, complete lawlessness in the area. That's something which has to be looked at.
Have we gone on the ground just to try and find out if that shop has a license, you know, to
That's one thing that I actually engaged the councillor yesterday, so that we can now go there and actually find out, do they have a license to be selling liquor in the community and all that. Like, that's really something which is lawless.
Oh, anyway.
And that crime, and just imagine that was raw for, and
you know, you're going to the market and then you're robbed, you're beaten, and on top of that you're raped by maybe someone who is younger than you.
Yeah, and you know these people, you can't even know someone's maybe health status.
Yes, they don't really care.
So in short, people need residents have been calling for more police patrols, really. And really, what another thing they're complaining about yesterday is that they said the young man who allegedly raped her, like when he was caught, he left his shirt in their hand. He took it off, left it in the hand, and ran off. By then they're saying they took the clothes to Tendere police, and they expected the police, you know, to come there, take some pictures of the crime scene. Yeah, so they expected the police to come to the scene, take some pictures. But then they're saying police. Wow. They allege that the police didn't go there. And they feel like
this is something that we also spoke about last time, where, you know, police are not taking much interest in terms of, you know, handling certain cases. You know, you'll find that you have been attacked and then they won't even show that seriousness to your case. Yeah.
I think that's something that actually today, we're lucky, Miriam, we've got an event where there'll be the Inspector General of Police. I think we have to ask him on some of these issues.
Those are the questions that we want.
Concerning crime.
You remember last time we were on this show, and then, you know, we had people calling us and telling us, no, if kunotika tuma phone tikawauza police if we're attacked, they'll tell you, how many are they, you know, the attackers and stuff like this? Do they have gun? We can't come there. You know, try other means that you can use to bring this person to the police. But if they're there to, you know, to work and do their job. But if they're telling you as a civilian to do that, how good are you? How best do they know that you can handle such a situation? You know?
So I think that's something really that we have to actually have. Maybe we need to hear from the IG himself. Today we'll be having some function, and I'm sure he will speak to some of those. And you know,
talking about you know, safety issues in our communities. Last week, the Ministry of Home Affairs and Internal Security, I think you covered the event where commissioning the operation of street cameras. Yeah. Did they mention that these are also going to be in various compounds on?
Yes, in all 10 provinces of the country.
Oh, okay.
In all 10 provinces of the country.
And I hope this can keep the, you know, such criminal activities.
Definitely. So that's something out there. Anyway, we have opened our phone lines and jumped into our next segment. So do remember to give us a Facebook message or call us on the numbers that are scrolling on your screen. So today we're talking about sodomy in Zambia. Why are there and why is there an increasing number of sodomy cases in the country? And Miriam, actually, we have some interesting activity that has been happening in the country, and that is the Lusaka July. And so some of the pictures that have been coming from the Lusaka July have been seen as controversial by many people, because we've seen men dressing up like women. So people are now asking a question like, what is this teaching as a country? Is this maybe degrading our morals, Zambia being a Christian nation? So we'd like to hear your views. What do you think about the ongoing, or maybe the Lusaka July that just ended where men are now dressing like women? And is this good for Zambia as a Christian nation?
As a Christian nation. And I've seen a lot of people have put up a debate saying, you know, our kids watch these kind of things. So what morals are we now impacting in our children? The values are we impacting in our children? So if they watch this on TV and see a man dressing up like a woman, they see it to be normal. What are we telling our children indirectly?
We're telling them to be...
Is this now the reason why we are seeing an increase of sodomy cases? Because, you know, where are these people learning such kind of things from?
Definitely. So I'm sure, Miriam, you can actually play one of the stories that we had actually from Chunga compound recently, where a man allegedly sodomized an autistic boy, just to set a tone to our topic for today. Let us take a look at the story. This mother of Lusaka's Chunga compound is worried about her 10-year-old son after he was allegedly sodomized by a 25-year-old male neighbor who is also believed to be HIV positive. Cases of sexual gender-based violence have continued to be on the rise, despite various attempts to sensitize community members about the dangers of the vice. According to the 2021 fourth quarter statistics on gender-based violence from the Zambia police, the country recorded 7,920 cases countrywide. Gender disaggregated data indicates that 1,814 of them were child victims, with 74% of child victims being girls and 26% being boys. Miss Mary Chewe, whose names have been changed, says it was on 5th March 2022 that her son with autistic tendencies mentioned the alleged cases of sodomy which have been happening to him. She has, however, called on human rights organizations to come in and help in pushing the matter legally, stating that there is pressure from the said family to settle the matter out of court.
Nikamba ya problem ya mine natika pali uwe. Pamene vinatika pa pezi pa Friday on 5th March. After 10 days so much. So manje pamene nachuka kunchitwa ine ninafika kunyumba kambili kaili uyu ni special child. So kambili kafika kunyumba nimafunza mwana alikuti samo alikuti. But on that day pamene nafunza was very quiet. Nifika ku living room napeza mwana adia. Nichani atawe sindine kaili kamba kwake tama kamba kodi mwamene makambira banzangi. Alikuwa na problem. Anapoka mchambati mami sindine nezo vifuna ninapoya na dabo ewe mamuna ngakugwire so because nesina available. That was the first time na mufuzi safuta again alonzo chabe the same at nama ero nabura nitenga means it 2 times per Thursday and the following Friday nateza kutenga bwanji ambosta experience azanitegera kunyumba ezabura kunyumba and anapeza po sister wangani matate bayi waposha mkwanji I was inga kutia kumfanyumba because ni kudala atengana mwana manjala kani mgule kwa majigi. Is that how they went kuja kumene waenda kuja kanshi munjira kuja bavichinja no ndokana kila kwa macheche somewhere no muza tia yambako vula.
Meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer of Unreached Areas Safe Homes, a non-governmental organization advocating for human rights, has also spoken out on the matter.
And then what has surprised me is this man was apprehended here in Chunga by the Chunga police post officers. And then he was there, I think, for 3 days, and then we were told he was transferred to Metropolis. Now it has been 10 days since the man was taken to Metropolis. So today I was asking the in charge of the Child Protection Unit to ask if at all he has received this case, and he expressed ignorance. He said, no, I'm not aware of it, but I'm going to follow it up to find out if this person is in our custody. That's when I said, please follow up the matter, because we need to see that the case goes to court and starts proceeding, so that justice is done on this person.
Mr. Charles Mukuka was speaking to Camnet News. Sexual abuse has far-reaching consequences on victims, among them inability to have normal relationships, a negative effect on mental health, and often leads to poor performance in school due to emotional instability, hence robbing the nation of the much-needed human resource. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka. Quite sad story there from Chunga compound here in Lusaka, where we saw a 10-year-old boy who's autistic being sodomized by someone in the community, also alleged to be HIV positive. So we actually hope that that case goes to the courts of law and that justice prevails, because we have seen a number of sodomy cases on the rise here in Zambia. So do join us in the conversation talking about child safety here in Zambia by calling the numbers that are scrolling on your screen, or leaving us a message on Facebook. So we have been joined by Iteshteji Member of Parliament, Honorable Mtinta Twambo, just help us discuss child safety in Zambia, among other issues, as you are aware schools have also opened today, so we're going to discuss a number of issues. Good morning, Honorable, and welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning, Zupora. And
it's good to have you on set.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miriam.
Yes, it's good to have you back after a long time.
Yeah.
And how was the state? I'm told you went to your constituency.
How are the people of Vitesse?
No, the people of Vitesse are okay. They are sending their warm regards.
Thank you.
Yeah, they are safe. They are well represented. As the people's representative, it's always right that when Parliament adjourns, like it did, you go back and get their views and understand the many challenges that the previous government left them with, and start finding ways and means on how best to do away with excuses and start executing the government policies of changing the lives of people as they espoused that those changes will start trickling immediately when they change the government. So it was a very good break. I went to, out of 15 wards, I went to about 6 wards just to help and interact with the people, meet the chiefs, understand what are the challenges, look at the CDF processes, try to also understand where are the gaps, how best can we unlock the processes, and just to meet various government departments to learn what challenges are going through and how best we can manage to deal with most of those issues. And now we are back in Lusaka. We need to move from one office to the other. Our job is to lobby, just to help and see how best we can change the status quo of our constituents. So basically, I think that is how this break has been. And as you may be aware, on the 9th, on Friday, the Republican president will be opening Parliament. So that will be another phase of Parliament. And we are looking forward to a legislative Parliament again, where we'll see a lot of other new laws coming into effect. Like you saw in the previous Parliament, I think we managed to bring quite a lot. And the most interesting is the Child Code Bill. That I'm sure is related to the conversation that we're having today, the safety of the children. Especially that schools have opened today, and also no matter how much we talk, there is still a lot of issues around the violation of the rights of the children out there. You are aware that we've had so many cases here and there, so many alleged voice recordings around sodomizing children. We've continued receiving a lot of cases around child abuse, various violations of children, rape case, and defilement. These numbers have continued increasing, and the latest statistic, which was given at the quarter, was also not too good. The largest number of children that were the largest number of GBV, SGBV cases, they related to children. So the picture is still not too good. And I think it's worth discussing.
Yeah. Given the picture that is not too good, and we're looking at child safety in Zambia, how do you think we can improve the alternative care system for children in the country?
Okay, thank you so much. So basically, when you talk about children, Miriam, we are talking about a kind of people that are defenseless, a kind of people that cannot come on this TV and come and talk about the issues that affects them. So it requires third parties. It requires people like us, advocates, members of parliament, the media, everyone else to come on board and start thinking about the welfare of the children. We were once children, but the moment we get out of the status of being a child, we forget about the challenges the children go through. So it's high time that perhaps every one of us came on board. Legislatures like us start introspecting about the welfare of the children. But more important, Miriam, is the status of this country in terms of the legal status of this country with regard to the safety of children. Statistics has it that Zambia is one of the lowest, is at the bottom in terms of standing, in terms of child safety in Africa. Is one of the top 5 bottom in terms of the safety of children in Africa. One of the benchmarks that puts us at that awkward situation is because of not having a very clear legal legal provisions around the protection of children. You might be aware that it's only a country like Zambia where you can't know where a child is. There's no clear definition of where a child is.
There's adult, juvenile, and all these things.
If you went to my village in Chifimoyo, a child is not regarded a child provided she has breasts. If you went to Chifunavule, you find the child is defined different depending on if she's tall, she's no longer a child, she becomes an adult. And a child is a child to everyone's eyes depending on how someone perceives a child. So all these are the issues that we feel. And when a child is violated, when a child is defiled, it becomes very difficult to define who the child is.
And there's also issues of child marriages along.
All those are the issues. It's only in a country like Zambia where Miriam, where we are here, you don't have a birth certificate. You get the point. It's only in Zambia. So you cannot define who a child is. So it's only in Zambia where the juvenile system, if a child today killed another child, we don't have a very clear system around juvenile justice. We only have about 3 defamatory colleges for defamatory schools for children who are on the wrong side of the law. And 3 out of the population of how many, over 8 million children we have in Zambia. So we are talking about a lot of gaps. And Zambia also is rated as one of the highest countries with regard to early child marriages. Issues of teenage pregnancies. It's only in Zambia where you find even issues of youth-friendly spaces in the hospitals where children can engage. We don't have oil. So there's still a high mountain to climb. And considering this fact, that is the reason why we have seen government is now, last parliament, after over 13 years, the government was struggling to bring about the Child Code Bill. But for the first time, you saw this bill coming into parliament. And this bill was a non-political bill. Whether you are PF, whether you are PNUP, whether you belong to Sean Tembo, whether you belong to anyone, everyone supported this bill. Because we all have children, and everyone saw it prudent that we needed to come up with a bill that is going to codify all the other pieces that protects children. We need to come up with a bill that will ensure that it protects children against harmful practices. We need to come up with a bill that will ensure that juvenile justice also becomes achieved in the country. We need to come up with a bill that will ensure that most government institutions, government schools, all spaces where children are found, they should have child safeguarding policies so that there should be no harm for the children. As I speak now in my constituency, Zipporah, I'm struggling with issues of initiation ceremonies. Children are being taken for initiation ceremonies during examination period. Children are being taken into initiation ceremonies during the school time. And I've put a ban in my constituency that I will not allow any parent who is going to take a child to an initiation ceremony who is in an examination class, who is during the school going times, because this is a harm to the girl-child education that the government is trying to promote. And we've reached a consensus with the parents. I faced them. It's not easy. I advise them that these laws government is bringing, they are not meant to do away with culture. We want to maintain our culture practice, but we can always do our culture practices in a manner that do not harm children, in a manner that do not dehumanize children. So we don't expect children to beat their little girls during initiation ceremonies. We expect hygiene practices to be adhered during initiation ceremonies. We don't expect a child who is in examination class to go into initiation ceremonies. Because what I've learned is when the children go into when they are under initiation, when they go into class, they are not allowed to talk to their teachers. If it's handing over a book, she gives a friend, she's the one who takes. They are not supposed to have a contact with the teacher. Now, how do you expect learning to take place? So all those are some of the issues that we are discussing now with my community. By the way, my community is Ruvale, Runda, these cousins of mine, so they love those culture practices. The arrangement. So we are managing it. We are talking to the parents. I've brought a lot of NGOs on board. Just try to engage without disowning culture, but finding an equal basis, so that at the end of the day, the children's rights, the safety of the children can also be protected, and the children, for once, they will feel that there are people that are speaking for them, and they will be able to live in an environment which is safe, which has less harm, and it will allow them to progress in their education so that they also become like you.
But talking about culture and safety of the children, I know you might, have some backlash from parents because, you cannot bring Western culture and stuff like that. But do you at some point try to engage these young ones, in as much as you try to talk to their parents that you cannot, take them to initiation ceremonies during their school, their exam period and stuff like that? Do you also try to engage the young ones and tell them, okay, this is the good for you, given the fact that, they grew up knowing this culture?
Yeah. I want to mention that modern programming of rights of children, it's not supposed to be done in isolation from the children. Actually, we are now moving at a point where programming on children's rights should be driven by the children themselves. Why are we saying that? That's the reason why when in my preamble I said that we adults, we cannot speak for the children because we don't know what the children go through. We only have experience because we are once children. But modern programming, it requires, there's a saying, there's an adage which says nothing for us without us. We need to reach a point where the young people are mentored correctly and they start championing their rights in a context which is acceptable, in a context which is within the acceptable values of a particular society. So there's always an assumption also that when you are protecting the rights of the children, you are championing the Western culture. So that assumption should also be demystified, and it has to be corrected. Yeah, it's not everything. It's not all Western culture practices which are bad. And again, it's not all African culture practices which are good. They are good, they are bad. I gave you a context of initiation ceremonies. We don't want people to stop doing initiation ceremonies. It's part of our culture. It's part of our tradition. But what good has an initiation ceremonies if a child is told not to go to class? What good will be an initiation ceremony if a child is dehumanized? I'll give you an example of Chiranga Moriwechung or those practices. I went to a what do you call this? Is it Mateve Chiranga Moriwechung? When the people are bringing food, when they were coming out, they decided to sing a Christian song. And that created a lot of tension. You get the point? So that was their choice. And they were trying to describe what they are. So that is how dynamic culture is. You get the point? But at the end of the day, culture should be practiced in a context where it does not dehumanize anyone. Because the issues that are being mentioned around the rights of children, these are human rights. You cannot take away anyone's human right. Regardless of culture, regardless of what, that person still remains a human being. So there's no debate about it. So there's no situation that would take away your human rights. Whether it's culture, whether it's Western modernity, whether it's anything, at the end of the day, you remain a human being and your rights should be protected. So whether it's marriage, whether it's a Chiranga Morido, whether it is an initiation ceremony, it can still be done in a framework where your rights are not violated. The moment when, as a woman, during, I don't know whether it's kitchen party, you start rolling to take food to your husband, you start rolling from outside up to here, there's a problem there. We have a problem with that.
So is that more like
so that is dehumanizing you now. So I know someone would argue that that's culture, but in my own, because culture again is very subjective. In my own perspective, someone can still respect me without rolling, as if he's at what do you call it, the guard room. So for me, that can still be done without asking someone to roll, because that rolling to me, I feel that as much as I want to be respected as a so-called man who should be respected, I feel that to some extent, I wouldn't want my child, my daughter, to roll for someone. So for me, that is dehumanizing that person. I know that my daughter could still demonstrate respect, love for the husband without doing it. In another way of demonstrating that he wants to provide. So for me, these are some of the issues that we need to introspect upon and see to it that we we move forward. I'll give you an example. I don't beat my child. Very well behaved. Good manners. I don't beat him. And I always tell him, no one should beat you. It's not right to beat. The way you are not supposed to fight, don't beat anyone. And I'm not supposed to beat you. Because I can always tell you, and you can. So all those are subjective, depending on how you do it. So again, it brings us to parenting. It brings us to parenting. This conversation that we've been having about so the arranged, sodomized video, all those again, they take us back to how do we parent our children. It's a busy world, but how do we parent our children?
And actually, speaking of Sodom, we actually do have a comment from one of our Facebook viewers here who says, movies showing same-sex relationships should be banned in Zambia. This is what encourages sodomy. Your view on that? Could people be learning this through movies? And for example, we've got a lot of South African movies. If you watch the movies, like of course the movie can be a normal movie, but in that movie there will be people maybe in the same-sex relationships.
Additionally, we have
sodomy in Zambia. Like why are we seeing a rise? So this is one of our viewers here, so maybe
additionally, we have seen cartoons nowadays from DSTV, even Go TV now promoting same-sex and stuff like that. Do you think this should be banned?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think for me, those are again conversations that are very subjective in nature.
This is a question. Yes. A question. So yes. Your response to the.
Yeah. So I just want to give you a background that such a question is also very subjective. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that you cannot live in a restrictive world when we are in a global society. Unfortunately, can you tell me a country where they've banned the miniskirts? You see. So we need to understand where we're coming from and also understand that we are in a global society. As much as we might say, ban this, ban this, ban this, I can assure you it's a very huge mountain to climb. I'll give you an example. Do you know that in countries where abortion is restrictive, there are more cases of abortion?
And what could be the cause of that?
Like in Zambia. You know, Zambia is one of the leading countries in abortion. Why? Because our law on abortion is a bit restricted. In countries where abortion is not restricted, there are very few cases of abortion. I'll give another example. Do you know that in Zambia we've got a lot of these gay issues? I will not refer to anything which is going on around the country. Whether you want it or not, they are there. They're there.
But as a Christian nation, should we allow these movies? Should we allow the movies? This is the question. As a Christian nation.
I don't know whether that is possible.
Yes.
It's not possible to do that. For me, it goes back to how do we manage? It's parenting again. Are you telling me that if you decide not to have a TV home, your children watch, when they knock off from home, they find there's no TV home, they will watch that, and you don't allow them to have a phone, they'll still watch?
They watch on their friends' phones. Human beings always have a way of going on.
If a child is well cultured, a child is well mannered. But the issue of managing our children is not a responsibility of the school. Just like all these stories around. We shouldn't shift your responsibility to others. That is where the problem is. We claim to be Christians, but we are failing to manage our own families. So we also need to ensure that as a country, one of the issues we need to invest in is our parenting skills. You know, parenting is not just a matter of having children. Anyone can have a child. So that's why not everyone is a parent. Others are just fathers. So we have discovered that there are a lot, and one of the reasons why we're failing to manage our children is because of these marriages of teenage people get married when they're still very young. They cannot even manage to talk to their children. So for me, one of the greatest investments we need to start having as a country, we need to have programs that build the family systems in this country. We need to have programs that build family systems so that people can go back to their roots and start talking to their children. Me, I've seen a trend which is growing where now a parent says, I've failed to control my child. Then who's going to control your child? Who's going to do it? You get the point? I'll give you an example. You, Miriam, you might claim that you ascribe to a particular culture. But have you ever had the time when you sat with your parents taking you through what is perceived to be your culture? Zero. You are just a Lusaka born. Your culture is about the TV and what you see around. So when you want to claim that when you want to claim that there's I'm Bemba, what do you know about Bemba? Have you been cultured into that Bemba practice? If I ask you if someone dies in Bemba, what do you do? What's the first step? You will not give me an answer. If you want to get married, what will be your first step according to your culture? You will not give me an answer. The culture you describe to me is the Lusaka one where you are born, the Kabwe one. In Nkuruma there. That is what you describe. You get the point? So also, you see, when we are asking for young people to adhere to a particular culture, we are not being fair. Because society has restructured itself. And the upbringing that us we have, we so-called, the upbringing we have is a cosmopolitan upbringing. The one of Lusaka, TV, and that's what our culture is. Gone are the days when the actual culture was inculcated in us. But those days when the actual culture was inculcated in us, you would sit with your grandmother. In Tonga, it's called the Gobero. In Saka, where you sit, you are being taken through the different medicines, how do you get married, how do you behave yourself at the funeral, different foods. Who had that opportunity amongst the three of us? Zero. So when we claim that there's a certain culture we follow, we are also not being honest with ourselves.
But don't you think parents have also adopted this modern world and not want to try and engage their young ones into culture,
Yeah, so that is why we are losing it. So parents have not had an opportunity to transcend that culture to us. So the blame again is on the children, that they are not following a culture which they have not been taken through. So the culture which the children know is the culture that they have been socialized with. What they see is what their culture is. So that's the reason why I'm saying it's high time we invested in programs that build strong family systems. That is what we need to do as a country now, because our family systems are broken. I'll give you an example. When people are talking about July or whatever, they say we're a Christian nation.
Lusaka July.
Yes. Are we really Christians?
And why are you posing the question?
So see, we are not being honest to ourselves. We are not being honest to ourselves.
Explain to the viewers what's really going on.
I don't know what this Lusaka July is myself. I just saw it on Facebook 2 days ago. What the purpose is, what the objective was, I have no clue. And I think that's a danger again of having events where you're just posting pictures. You're not telling us anything. I was just seeing pictures. This one pops, this one pops, this one pops. But no one was telling us whether, was it about winning something? Was it about who won? Was it my hometown? Because when people are doing an event, there should be also something. Was it about who got the best? Is it about whether was it outfits? What do you call it? Fashion? I had no idea. So this is what we are now compounded in this global society where things are just popping up. I might not want to say like what's trending now, people insinuating that that was a gay thing. That's
coverage of any breaking or latest news in Zambia and around the world on Camnet television, call the numbers on your screen. Camnet television, bringing to your screens fair news, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Camnet television, not just another channel.
Thank you for staying tuned in. We just had a short interruption there, but nevertheless we continue. Thank you for staying on. We are discussing child safety in Zambia. How safe are children given a number of sodomy incidences that have been occurring? So do join us in the conversation by calling on the numbers that are scrolling on your screens or leaving us a message on Facebook. And Honorable, just to pick up from where we left, today we've seen that a number of schools have opened. But then we talk about schools. Is there any system maybe which supports reporting such instances, given that many people are not free to talk about such things in their homes, but then with the free education initiative, schools become one of the places of refuge? Do we have a system where children can open up and talk about child abuse?
Yeah, thank you so much. So, just like I did mention in the preamble, these are some of the issues that we need to address as a country. And that is what the Child Code Bill also endeavors to deal with. Like I mentioned, one of the reasons why our country, Zambia's status is below par in terms of child safety is also not having established systems in place. First of all, where a child can report all forms of abuse. If you asked 5 children at random, say, for example, if someone is touching your private parts, who do you report? Most of these children have no clue. Worse still, if you say, if it's your parent who is touching your private parts, whether it's your mother or your father, the child will become more confused. So we need to give our children the right information. Now, this also brings me to the issues of comprehensive sexuality education. You see, comprehensive sexuality education curriculum, it also gives the children to understand their rights, to understand the justice system. But when a child is in grade 3, you teach him about, if someone touches your private part, if it's someone who is not your relative, tell your parents. If it's your parents, go and report to the police. And the police is found at such a place. Or if you have a phone, there's such a number. Meaning our children will now be armed with information. Zambia is the only country where you can just come in the photo, get a phone, capture a child. You don't find such things in other countries. Zambia is the only country where you can go to a school right now. If we had the criminals, you can walk to this Chibero and you can kidnap 2 children.
Easy.
You know you can do it.
But what has made the system so porous?
Yeah, it's because we haven't had we have not invested so much in the protection of the rights of children in this country. The previous governments haven't done that. Even the law that endeavors to codify all the pieces of registration, it failed to come into effect, not until when the UPND government came into power. And we are waiting for the president to sign it. It has passed through all the stages of parliament. What we're waiting is now to assent it into law. That is the law which will give us now, which will increase the investment. We need a lot of stakeholders to come on board. One of the things I'm doing in my constituency, you can't have schools that are not in an offense. It's not right. We need to reach a point where all the schools should be no offenses. That's the reason why you've been hearing cases of children out of bounds, what. Even in day schools, Go to some schools in Kanyama, they've tried my offense now. Children, they walk out, they go and drink to GDG. In some of these schools. Children, they leave the school, they go and watch movies, TVs in the markets. Some schools are closer to the market. So these are some of the issues that we need now to start introspecting about. Let's look at the location of the schools.
I've seen that in Lusaka, in Kanyama, there's a story that I was doing, and then we have a caller.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Hello?
You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. How are you and who are we talking to? Hello, good morning.
Hello?
We can get you. You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show.
Hello?
We can hear you, sir.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Give him a signal.
Hello?
And before us back, we are talking about child safety in Zambia, and just make sure you have a place where there's actually good reception. Miriam?
Yeah, exactly. I was saying, there's this one time I was doing a story at in Kanyama, and then there was a nearby community school.
Hello?
It's not in it wasn't in a fence. And then you have children.
We have a call.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
We're fine, thank you. You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we speaking to this morning?
Yes,
Yeah, Mr. Who, come again?
Yes, you can go ahead.
You can go ahead. Okay, it's come. Though I do. Ati bweza mponi chabwe futi mwezi mwaka mbatika mwana ka 5 years kenzo samba na bantu.
Mwana wa 5 years samba na bazao na mkuru ugozi. Wape 5 years. So you mwana mgozi kana mkuru kana kuyaga mwana mkuru wa mkuru sabi. Wani agana so. So ya mwana wa 5 years muuga mkuru wa tuji. Yona ati undapa kito chake. Mkuru manje mtenga wona mtenga ndio pale kwake. Ouza kilo ni mkuru kwa hiyo amita ndio basi yake Mungu kuishi. Ati arubula Mungu atawabela mazapa ya ndani. So kwa hapa yetu sisi wakati dati wakampeleka kukoti Mungu kulipa kazi dati baba.
Vinachitikira kuti vamene ivi.
Vinachitikira kuno kundani kukalamo pa Friday.
Okay, zikomo.
Okay, zikomo kwa mimi.
Okay.
Mwamvera mastori za ukalabo babulu banga bakalabo.
Maybe honorable.
No, so for me,
I think he's trying to get in line, maybe talking about how we can strengthen child justice administration for those who are found in conflict with the law.
Yes, that is correct. So in the same place, how does a 5-year-old child is bathing with an adult?
25-year-old.
So those are breeding spaces even for Sodom. That is in the starting place. So again, where are the parents? Then the other issue is the juvenile justice. Like he's saying, my brother from Kaoma, our children should be protected. So look at a 5-year-old child. Maybe he was saying that, boss, he's a child. A child is defined as not being in his right frame of mind. You cannot get a statement from a 5-year-old child that you die this year and you take it as a biblical truth. You start pursuing the child.
It's a matter of believing in witchcraft.
Those are the issues. So for me, I think it's not right. But just like he's saying, as a government, also government is now strengthening juvenile systems in this country. A child of 5 years old, if they take him to court, there will be a social welfare officer who is going to stand on his behalf and be able to speak on his behalf. A child of 5 years cannot be given space to speak even in the court. But what we are trying to do now as government, we discover that the juvenile inspectors, those people that stand on behalf of the children, the numbers are also not enough in most of these districts. When a juvenile inspector goes for court, the station remains unattended to. So these are some of the areas that we also need to invest. I was also talking about in case a child is found on the wrong side of the law, like that 5-year-old as we are talking about, where do we take them for reformation? We only have about 3 reformatory centers. Katombola, Mtodwan, in Kitwe. But what about in Kalabo? What about in other spaces across the country? So those are some of the areas that we need to do to invest. So all in all, the juvenile system also, it needs to improve so that the children can also be protected. But I was talking about the issues of reporting. You could see that even my brother from Kalabo, he doesn't understand. He's on the side of a child. But if you ask him, where do you report such a case when you feel that a child is being violated, people have no idea. People do not understand the function of the social welfare department. People do not understand the function of the VSU department. So we still need to invest on information. We need to reach a point where in the schools, in every school, there should be suggestion boxes where children can report all forms of violence. We need to have counselors in the schools so that they manage the children who are deviant. And there's just so much that we still need to do as a country, and that's the direction the European government is going. The first step was to come up with a child code bill. Now is about starting to implement some of those pieces of legislation. Now starting to invest, put more money in systems that will protect children.
Let's talk about this. I wanted to say, are we as parents, as if I'm a parent already, but a parent...
parent in waiting. Potential parent.
Are parents doing enough to ensure that the safety of a child is protected, given the fact that this young boy who is 5 years old, taking a bath with a 25-year-old person, where were the parent?
And also, that's the habit here in Zambia.
Yes.
Where children, the children bath with other children, but then I don't know really if that's really conducive.
But didn't they also try to consider a potential fact, maybe that child might have been molested by that person?
Yeah, maybe that could be another possibility. So for me, these are some of the issues that indeed we needed to start talking about. Unfortunately, when we are championing the rights of children, I've seen a tendency where we as adults, we are competing with children. You get the point? We are not supposed to compete with children. The children are our children. And what we should just know that whatever we are doing, we should be doing it for the good of our children. And also we need to understand that the children are defenseless. So as much as we might want to say, let's not do this, let's do this, we should also understand that on the other side, there are also people that would violate the rights of these children. And for you and me, we can defend ourselves. But a child can't defend himself or herself. You see the difference? That is the reason why we all need to come on board as parents and push that we have a child justice system. Our schools, let them be no offenses. We need to go into the classroom where your child learns and understand how the tables are put. It's your right and your responsibility. If a table will fall on your child, how is it going to be? Children, they walk distances in Lusaka, crossing roads. They are just disposed of. He goes. You don't mind how they are crossing the roads, how they move. We have heard of children who have been bashed. You get the point? We have also heard of teachers that are still beating the children in the schools. These issues are still there. We have also learned of police cells. I'll give you an example in my constituency. My police cell has a capacity of about maybe 18 inmates, but it accommodates over 30 people. So if a child was found on the wrongs. In most of these police cells around, they don't have a provision for a child cell. So if a child went wrong, where would you put her?
We have a caller. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, madam.
You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to this morning? Please go ahead with your contribution, sir.
Yes, I just want to contribute to the first topic about that issue of parking the kids. You know, that expected women, they normally start with the kids in that state of 5 days. That's what the woman was. And the one that somewhere, I have a prayer for son. In fact, I would do that. But expected women, they normally do that, which is very bad. You know, ujanga pajana kura boda iwatuno to 15 days. First grade. Usama nayo, so that's what I'm around the bazar. Wow. But so you go to the money to demand, but not to the muna. As much as what that happens, not one hour. Baadaye ya kudaka banaye achoka hizo baadaye ya watafirika. Thank you very much. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you.
Honorable, there's a comment.
Actually, last time I think there was one of these NGOs that advocate for maybe that deal with gender issues. That they were saying actually discrimination. Some mothers would be there, maybe a person with their son in the room. Those issues.
You know, like he's just 5, he's just 2 years. He doesn't know anything.
Yeah, so those are some of the issues that are compounding us. But also, one thing we also need to understand is how do we bring up the mind of a child? What is the child's understanding of these issues as he's growing up? I'll also cite another example. For example, if I see you wearing a miniskirt, and also if he was a man, both of me and him, we see you wearing a miniskirt, will our reaction be the same? We all have an election at the same time, perhaps different. What causes that?
The mindset.
So it's a mindset and our orientation. You get the point? It's a mindset and our orientation. So how do we orient these children? For example, when a child is growing up, what picture does he have about her sister? Or what is our perception about a woman in general? When this boy is growing up, as he's growing up, what are you telling him that a woman is? I think you are getting the point. What are you telling that child as he's growing up? And that is what his mind is going to be. Are you telling that boy as he's growing up, is he seeing a woman as reddish? Or is he seeing every woman as a sister? So that's another angle. That's another school of thought. To an extent where you have seen people that complain about women wearing miniskirts. What is the issue there? What is the issue? You see that? What is the issue? So these are some of the issues you need to start interrogating.
Let's talk about harmful traditional practices. We have seen, as we come to the conclusion of our program this morning, we have seen a lot of fathers or mothers would intend to, sleep or have sexual intercourse with their own biological children just because they've been told, you need to keep certain cultures and stuff like that.
Yeah, so for me, those are some of the cultural practices that I was saying. We need to review them. We are not supposed to throw them away completely. We are reviewing them. And you see, we are now in a democratic dispensation we are in a world where people build their own philosophy, their own understanding of life, because life does not happen in a straight line. We see things different. So, issues of you die today, they look for any uncle from the village, he marries you, and before the funeral is over, even has sex with you. Those were acceptable practices. Why did you do away with them? They were acceptable cultural practices. But we reached a point where we accepted. So when your husband dies, if you say, okay, me, I'll just, life goes on. You are not taken through some cultures where you need to sleep with another man, what. If you refuse to do that, you are deemed to be westernized. Then the people would curse you. Right? So, I can assure you nothing would happen. And slowly we've accepted that nothing would happen now. We have accepted that. So we should also be honest that there are a lot of cultural practices that we have now agreed that they were harmful, and we've done away with them. With the coming of HIV and AIDS, all those other things. So it's the same. With other issues that we are now talking about around issues of the rights of children, when we are talking about why can't we have Chisongo, not in the school times. What we have are you aware that even the syllabus for Bwana Fimbosa is being reviewed? You are aware? The curriculum.
Make it uniform.
Not only to make it uniform, it should also be aligned to the rights of women. Because we cannot be talking about Bwana Chimbosa who are going to be pinching you. You get the point?
Respecting the rights.
So what we are trying to say is everything. We can uphold our cultural practices. We can still allow the children to respect us, but within the framework of respecting the rights of people. So cultural practices, indeed, they need a lot of review. Bad ones, we put them aside without taking away our values. And still continue with those cultural practices that we feel that they are still good, they inculcate good morals, they inculcate good behavior.